Hi, my name's Ben. I considered doing a little bit of a splurgy introduction about myself at this moment in time. What's interesting about doing an introduction to a talk when you've put a slide behind you that is moving is that nobody's paying you any attention. And I guess this is my first point. I could do a little introduction, and I will do in a moment because my background is relevant, but the title of this talk is maybe meant to make you realise that there's a difference between something like this, which is happening, and something like this, which would not be distracting at all, because that is a completely pointless waste of time. And if I'm speaking about something, nobody cares about two yellow dots, but if, however, they keep moving, all I'm doing by looking at the audience now is watching some of you who have managed to wrestle your attention away from moving dots and maintain eye contact with me, very polite. But most of you, even though I just called it out, are still looking back at something on the screen which is moving. So first comment, if you have an audience and you care about where their attention is, if something is moving, their attention is on that. And that can be both a good thing and a difficult thing. Be aware of it and use it. Just in case you're worried about the maths, it is coming from a situation where those two blobs are moving in a nice way. They're actually moving because of a third blob which is not visible on the screen. So if you like the movement that was happening, it's just a bit of simple harmonic motion, and there's some trigonometry. However, that's not really what this talk is about. I would like to introduce myself and give you a taste of some of the stuff I do, because it might contain useful opportunities for people in the communication of mathematics. And I'll say a little bit more about my background in a moment, although there's a list of people who I do work with on the screen. And it is a slightly different background from the majority of people in the room, because my job often involves delivering mathematics, possibly more for entertainment purposes than for academic research. Now, I was a school teacher for 10 years, and my job was not to entertain the students, but sometimes it helped if you did. They also had to pass exams, but getting their motivation to study a subject is part of the battle. And that is also part of the battle with communicating dry content to an audience that doesn't know whether they want to be there. So let me give you some background to what I do, and I'll explain why it might be worth knowing about. I currently work for part of my time for MEI and the AMSP. I'm delivering a course on the maths behind AI. It's turned up a lot today. That's not what I'm due to talk about. However, it is for A-level students who get to choose to do this course. It happens online because there is nowhere in school curriculum where data science and machine learning is currently available to learn in A-level content. The maths A-level's there, it's great. If they want to go and learn about AI, they need some maths. The government knows it, throws money at it, and then they say, yeah, so where in the course is that content? It's not there. A-level maths does not contain machine learning or data science in any meaningful way. So MEI has piloted a course where we do teach those bits, and we're trying it out. It's online. It is going to happen wider, so watch this space. That's part of my job at the moment, and it is relevant to what was talked earlier by Chris Budd and so on. Another part of my work is at the University of Bath, where I teach on the Communicating Maths module, which is for undergraduates who are doing a maths degree. Some of them get to choose to do a module which is not about learning new mathematics, it's about learning how to talk about it, or how to write about it, or how to make a video about it, or how to teach a lesson about it. It is not a teacher training course, but it has a similarity with that, and is very much redeeming us mathematicians as humans and remembering that talking to other humans is a different sort of skill, but if we ignore that, we don't communicate well. That is two parts of my work. The other part of my work is much more in the freelance world, where I get to talk about maths, maybe more for entertainment and enrichment purposes, and I used to do that with the AMSP too. The bulk of that is done with a company called Maths Inspiration, which is run by Rob Eastaway, who's actually very sad he couldn't be here today. I promised I'd represent his company as well as I could. And Maths Inspiration is where we go into school theatres around the country and do a big show with 2 or 3 speakers, and we pay attention to the performance and the production values, but it is still getting people inspired about mathematics. So we do things on stage, we do the spectacle on Jeopardy, and you get people involved and inspired, in theory, to go and study more maths, which is a necessary part of the education pipeline, perhaps. Interestingly, you can see the deal for maths communicators. This is Sophie McLean here, demonstrating that you have to actually put your hand in front of you with the thumb out in order to perform well. I know that because when I look at other people who perform mathematics, for example, Ben and Katie, interestingly, Katie going with a left-handed approach, but it was working. I put this slide out because one part of my job also now involves delivering maths communication training to adults, not necessarily students. We've done that in this room several times. Katie and I just said we'd like to talk about how to make this work. And so we've done some training, and the INI has helped us do that here from time to time. It isn't just me and Katie, and actually Alison Kittle, also in the room, has been joining in and doing with that as well, so thank you. They're both at the back, have a chat to them. And partly I want you to be aware is that there are people offering training in specifically communicating maths, whether that's to sort of school audiences or professional audience. And it isn't just us, but we're out here to help. And we're going to give you a chance to show you one glimpse of one piece of advice we might give on a course like this. But there's a lot more to talk about. But it exists. I should also say that Marianne and Rachel have also joined us as part of that mass communication, and quite often we've done a double act where they've talked about the writing of mathematics and we've talked about the speaking about mathematics, and it works really well as an overlapping thing. So watch out for those sessions if you think that would sound useful. Let me give you, though, a quick glimpse, so that's why we've done these courses, a quick glimpse of the one piece of advice. But before I do, I'm going to put a quote on the screen. I want to know whether you, or how you feel about this, because you might have heard it. Anyone know who said this? It was Anna Kuhn. When did she say that? It was about 3 hours. And I wanted to justify the work which sometimes feels a bit trivial that I'm doing. Like I'm going and doing the funny bits on stage. I'm doing gambling on stage. We're like doing demos on stage in a theatre. It's not serious stuff, is it? But the techniques involved in selling it to a 16-year-old audience, who are brutal, by the way. If they find something boring, you know about it. If you can make it work for them, and chances are you found a way of making it accessible and engaging, and the same techniques will often work for policymakers or academics, they may be more polite about it if you don't get it right. But I'm saying that if you've got good communication techniques, they work in a variety of situations. And that will be part of what I want to make a point about. So, well, one piece of advice I'm going to try and get, you may have picked up from the title, but let me give you an example. Here are 5 topics. They are definitely mathematical. You've got 30 seconds to chat to your neighbour about what they might involve and whether any of them feel interesting. Off you go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop finding it interesting. Okay. Good, you're a polite audience, I can tell. They're just from a black and white slide with some words on. Some of you are like, I wonder what that's about. Let me show you an alternative way of presenting these topics, which is this. Assuming my click works. I didn't pay any of the oohs, but thank you. My first point is that although the black and white text is doing something about telling you what's coming up, here are the same 5 topics with visuals. And one obvious piece of advice in communicating is putting words on your slide is kind of missing the point, because you're probably going to say those words, and what you could put on the slides that you can't say are the pictures that go with them. So actually, these are all pictures of those things that I just put titles about. And already I submit that this might be a more engaging piece of slide use than the words. However, watch what happens when I make one tiny change to these 5 images. One of them has got your attention, more than the other ones. Now, the dinosaur is doing a lot of pulling as well. But I'm trying to make the point that if you can make something moving, it is almost alarming how much it dominates your attention. If, however, I make all of them move, which was kind of the point of this session, if I hadn't shown you the 5 bits of text earlier, I would already be showing you an interesting slide. I'm going to give you the same 30 seconds, talk about whichever one grabs your attention and what might be going on. Off you go.
I've made videos with a bit in about most of those.
I agree. It's very chemical and material science. Like cooling down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm in danger at this point, if I continue to talk while this is happening behind me, of completely undermining my point. So I will just reiterate my advice. First of all, one basic piece of advice I can give is if you have some text on a slide, consider replacing it with a picture. And the next level is, if you've got a picture, and that picture is mathematical, and you could make that picture move, even if it's a significant amount of work, it might be worth spending the time to do, because it has quite a disproportionate effect on attention and curiosity. Now, I am fully aware that this slide is leaning heavily into the extreme cognitive load situation Duncan was pointing out with the subitizing us counting at speed. This is more is two more. However, if you can spend a bit of time making a simulation, for example, of a Möbius strip, it saves you cutting them in half repeatedly, physically on stage, which has a nice effect. But a simulation or an animation of simulation goes a long way. If a picture speaks 1,000 words, a moving picture, square 1,000? I don't know. It's doing quite a lot more because it is literally thousands of pictures coming and going. And one other thing I'd like to make is that, I make a point about mathematically, is that a moving picture quite often promotes mathematical questions. Questions like, what's changing and what's staying the same? And if that's not a pair of mathematical questions at the heart of everything, I don't know what is. It promotes the idea of generalizing, which is what is true in general and what is staying the same. And these are really deep mathematical concepts that can be captured by a moving image. Just in case you have forgotten, those are the titles I used for these things earlier. I will put these up again if people want to ask questions, but let me give you one more example. Here is a graph you have seen before today. Gillian showed this from the British Social Attitudes, have I said that right? This is the graph about the NHS data and people's perceptions over time. Let's say you have an image of that graph. It is a wonderful graph, it's capturing lots of social perspectives. Would it be better if you could make it move? Possibly. So this happened today. I was like, that's a great graph. Let's hide it. And actually, there's a lot of communities out there, they call this the slow reveal graph. Now, it's not particularly moving, but it changes the way you think about a picture because it lets you tell the story. And Tamandra has also been playing into my hands here because storytelling is what humans do when they want to get a message across. The parables of Jesus are good examples. These stories are memorable because they have a journey and we are used to storytelling. Here's a story of the NHS's perception back in 1984. And if I slowly reveal it, you see those perceptions changed, but actually a lot of the positive reactions were bumbling around the 50%. And then something happened here which caused a different part of the story to emerge. And then the next chapter of the story was it coming down again. And then something happened here, there was a dotted line, a change in methodology or something else. And what happened next? Well, you've seen the graph before, do you remember? I don't know why that happened. Was it the change in methodology? The point I'm trying to make is by making the graph slowly reveal or move in some sense, I've changed the way we perceive the story. And it can be quite easy to do, particularly if you've got a graph already, try just showing bits of it at a time and tell the story as you go. It's to do with cognitive load as well. How much can you pay attention to at once when it's all on the screen? Probably better to direct their attention a bit at a time by making it reveal. So, let me finish pretty much where I want to get to, which is I feel strongly about this stuff. It is enjoyable to share with students the exciting bits of mathematics, but it's also important that we as a community share the important bits of mathematics with the policymakers. So it's not just about inspiring people, but I tell you what, if you go to a policy briefing situation and one presenter surprises and inspires the policymakers, guess which bit they're going to remember when they make their policies? Communicating well, whether it's to students in a school or a bunch of policymakers, the same advice applies. Do it better, and the outcomes, I think, will be better depending on your goals. So here are some possibly useful options and opportunities for you to think about in the spirit of this being a taster training session. Katie and I are running mass communication training. We're not the only people to do it, but we can give you some advice that includes some of the stuff I've just been chatting about. That was just one comment that we often talk about, make it move. The reason I'm here, I think I worked alongside Marianne and Rachel for a video creation training workshop where I got to talk to some Maths 4DLs, Maths for Deep Learning people, Chris talked about them earlier, and talk to them specifically about their research and how to get a video out of it. And quite often that involves how do you identify the visualizations and can you make them move, and then how do you string it together in a storytelling aspect in a video format. And there's some technical video making skills in there as well. And something else which I thoroughly recommend, which is I think the least standard advice that you're going to hear today, is come along to a kids show. Or rather, if you're in town and one of these mass inspiration shows is happening at Bath, Bradford and Reading in March this year, come and watch some people who are deliberately trying to make an entertaining and inspirational show for 16-year-olds, and come and judge whether we're getting it right. We don't always get it right, but we have to pay attention on a large scale to the spectacle and the jeopardy and make it memorable. And I think some of those things are really useful to remember when you are talking to policymakers. You don't have to do a very risky demo for them. but if you did, they're going to remember it. I don't know, but some of the principles might be useful. So please, if you want to come to a maths inspiration show, you can get up in touch with me or Rob Easterway and come and watch what's going on. And by all means, give us some feedback. I will also say you can always get in touch with me at www.bensparks.co.uk or get in touch with Katie, who's running these training courses with me as well, or the I&I, who are putting them on for us as well. What I will do is finish by showing you the 6 moving categories, and I still apparently have a minute of time left. There is a general Q&A session, but these are the 6 bits of maths that were moving around on the screen earlier. You're welcome to ask me questions about them, but I'm not going to speak for loads of time about them. So I'm going to stop there and say thank you very much for listening and enjoy the movement.